Rudy Umans. So one more thing before we go, that besides being a photographer, I am also an amateur writer. I write my blog, and since short recently, I also write for this magazine. This is a new magazine. It's called Obscura Craft Magazine. It's about analog photography, old school photography. It tells you about the history of photography. It tells you about alternative processes, painting processes that have been around for 150 years. It tells you about pinhole photography, regular analog photography. It has a lot of history in it, some how-to articles. It's very interesting. I think it's a must-have for every analog photographer who values the old established photographic values. And this is beautifully made. And the best part is it is print. It is in print. It's not a digital online. It is not one and zeros. It is actually high quality paper that you feel in your hand, and this is a delight and kind of rare nowadays. So let me flip through it for you. You can kind of get an impression of what it looks like. There's beautiful photographs in it, articles. This is a user, he makes these kind of things, old school printing processes. So take a look. Here's an article about a few cameras, large format cameras, books. We'll put a link at the bottom, so check it out. You can order just a copy, you can take a subscription, you can order a print copy, or you can order a digital copy. It's called Obscura Craft Magazine. I have this bag that doesn't take the film holders I talked about earlier. It has this bag. It looks like this. This holds 6 pictures. There's little holders in it. They're called septums, and it holds 6 pictures. So I can take 6 pictures like this, and then I have to put on another one. So I call it my little 6-shooter. And shift, which is basically the same as rise and fall and all that. It's just horizontal, which comes in handy if you want to photograph a fence or row of trees or anything of that nature, or the train. The way you focus with this camera is with a loop. You have to have a loop, and you focus in the back. You focus, is that the good angle? You focus in the back through what they call a crown glass. That's what this is. The image that you see, your subject is projected on this glass, upside down, and left and right reversed. That's just the nature of the lens. Every lens does that, even the lens of your cell phone. The nature of the beast. And then I have this cloth. I have a big cloth. I put the cloth over my head. You might have seen pictures of it. Angela Adams was famous for using these cameras, for instance, and there are some pictures around that he stands there with the cloth over his head. And I do the same thing just to keep the light out so I can actually see what I'm doing on this ground glass. This is sometimes a little bit challenging in the air glazing, especially in the summer. You know, I like to photograph dry eye, as I said, and most dry eyes, unfortunately, in the summer with all the big thunderstorms and with all the mosquitoes around. So, even though they still make them today, there are still some manufacturers who make brand new ones for these. There's a manufacturer in France, there's one in Eastern Europe somewhere, there's one in China, there's one in England. There are several people who still make these type of cameras. They might look a little bit different, but in principle they're the same thing. So these cameras have three parts. They're very simple cameras. They have a back standard, they have bellow, they have a front standard, and they have the bed. That's four parts, but the bellow is separate. You focus on this one. I can focus with the back by moving this button. This is what I call a rack and pinion. It has a rack, and then it has a little gear, like a little rail, like a railroad thing. Or I can focus with the front. This is more common. If you focus with the front, the image doesn't really distort or get larger and bigger. You focus with the back at night. And one of the advantages of this camera are what I call movements. Everything you see here can be moved. I can rise, what they call rise, the front standard, or I can drop the front standard. This comes in handy if you do tall buildings. You see, if you take a picture of a tall building with a normal camera and the camera leans, or the building leans a little bit, and it is like giant on the bottom and tiny at the top, you can correct that with these. You can do the perspective control. The depth of field is the distance which is sharp in your picture. You can have the first part blurry, then a section that is sharp, and then a section that is blurry again. Normally with the camera, you regulate that with your f-stop. With these cameras, you regulate it with the f-stop also, but you can tilt the front. You can also tilt the back if you need to. I don't want to get too technical, but there's a thing called the shine-proof principle, if I pronounce it right. And this influences the depth of field. I can get anything sharp from right in front to the camera to infinity just by doing this. And the advantage of that is that I can use smaller apertures than with a normal camera. Which also has an advantage because or bigger apertures, I should say, the smaller numbers are bigger apertures. And the advantage of that is better sharpness. If you use very small apertures like f22 or smaller, you get a little thing called diffraction, and that influences the sharpness of your picture. You have less chance of that with this camera because you can use bigger apertures, smaller f-stop. Instead of having a little pinhole It has what they call a zone plate. It's too small to show you, but a zone plate looks like a little Fresnel lens, like you see in a lighthouse, but then teeny miniature, and it gives a cool effect. It makes it real, well, some people call it blurry, I call it magical. And a place to put the film. This particular camera is a very good camera. A lot of the quality of pinhole cameras depends on the quality of the hole, the little hole itself, the accuracy, and how it is finished, how the edges, if it has smooth edges or ragged edges, makes a big difference. This one is one of the best pinhole cameras I ever worked with. I call it my little birdhouse, because it looks like a little birdhouse. The shutter is a little different than the big one. This is what I call, I can take this off, filter, so you can see it better. This is what I call a guillotine shutter, because it looks like a guillotine. And then if I pull it off, then it reveals the little tiny little hole. And then when I'm done, I just push it down. It doesn't have a cable release like the other one. This is just push it up and push it down and pull it up. That's it. I put this thing on it so I can easily change it from horizontal to vertical. This is homemade by a friend of mine. Back in the 90s, he had a small production line of these, and he was very successful with it. His name is Ken Nunamaker. And these cameras were called the Snapdragon 45. Very sturdy. I mean, kill a horse with this. The holders are like this size. So if you want to compare to the other one, you can tell the difference. So 4 of these fit in here. But other than that, it's basically the same. And one of the advantages of the bigger one is if you want to make enlargements, you don't have to enlarge it that much as with the smaller formats. That's basically the big advantage, besides it's just cool. And a pleasure to work with. Both cameras are a pleasure to work with. This one was made by Zeneca Ao in Hong Kong. The pinhole wheel is a small wheel. Everybody pretty much knows everybody. Everybody knows the makers. A lot of people make their camera themselves. But there are a number of manufacturers out there like Zeneca Ao who makes these cameras under the name Zero Image. And they're just fantastic cameras. Complicated to make. On the other side, and they call it a pinhole because the size is literally, the hole is literally the size of a pin. Needle, like a little needle. But this is my favorite camera actually, because of the simplicity of the camera. As I told you, it is an empty box, it has no lens, it has no viewfinder, it has no electronics. It is really nothing, literally a box with a hole on one side and a place to put the film in the other side. You focus, there's nothing to focus because there's no lens. The viewfinder, there are some guidelines, a couple of little dots here so you line up the edge of the film with the center of the front, because that's where the little hole is. So you get this angle, and if you follow your eye like that, then you get a pretty good idea of what you get in your picture. Once you did that, you make sure that the camera's horizontal, all lined up, and kind of figured what you did. You take a picture of food and you use the film. This is the size of film that the camera uses, 8 by 10 inches. This is a film holder. The film comes in sheets. And you put the sheet in here, in a dark room. No light, obviously. And then once you did that, you put the holder in here. You slide the dark slide with the protection, you slide it out. You push the button to open the shutter on the other side, like this. And that's it. And then when your exposure is done, you let it go, the shutter closes, you push this back in, and you're done. It's very simple, and nothing to worry about other than the subject that you're looking for. So, and one of the reasons I like that is because it's kind of like building up an intimate relationship with your subject. With these, it's easier to do for me with these cameras than it is with a complicated camera, because I don't have to worry about anything other than what's right in front of me and the correct exposure. That's it. Exposure times, by the way, are usually very long. Usually 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 30 seconds, or longer, depends on the circumstances. And this particular one, I put a red filter in here. But the red filter stops the blue light and makes the clouds more contrasty. This takes a lot of light. So whatever shutter speed you measure comes 3 times longer if you use a filter like this. So they have to keep that in mind. And that gives the water, one of the things that it does is it gives the water, it looks like a cloud. Looks like a cloud. You can see that on this picture here. I don't know if you can see it. See all the little wavies and stuff that disappear and becomes almost like fog. The same here, all the waves are all gone. And that's because of the long shutter speed.